Have you ever met somebody who asked you what you did for a living, and when you told them, their reply was, "Gee, it must be great to get paid to play all day"? It is so infuriating to be disrespected in that way. I mean, just think about all the critical routines and procedures that you have to teach in the beginning of the year just to get your classroom up and running. Not many people can pull that off. And it takes skill and talent, which can take years to develop. There is nothing easy about it. It truly is an art form. Think about it. You can never take for granted that your little learners will know what you mean when you say wash your hands or clean up. In fact, there are so many little routines and procedures that are critical to starting the school year, especially in pre-K, that if you miss just one, you're sunk for the entire year. In today's episode, I'm sharing the most critical routines and procedures that can make or break you those first few weeks of school. And I put them all into a nice little free printable checklist for you because that's how much I like you. Now, if you want to get your hands on this checklist so you can be sure you're covering all your bases in your classroom and setting your kids up for success, then keep watching or listening until the very end because I'm going to tell you how you can get your own copy. Now I'm going to share one of my very own routine and procedure failures with you because I truly believe that we learn best from our own mistakes. When this happened, I was several years into my teaching career, teaching pre-K, and I thought that I had seen it all and I had my procedures down to a science. But not this year, my friends, not this year. You see, this was the year I moved to a new campus, and instead of having bathrooms in the classroom like I'd had previously, we now had a group bathroom down the hallway, you know, the kind with stalls. And that's when I discovered one teeny tiny little procedure I had completely forgotten because it had never come up before. And that teeny tiny little procedure was the urinal in the boys' bathroom. It never crossed my mind that the little boys in my classroom may have never seen one of these things before. So let's just say that I was extra nice to the custodian this year. And from then on, I always invited the men who attended my Meet the Teacher night before the first day of school to show their sons this unique feature in the bathroom. And on the first day of school, there was always a male staff member who was voluntold to review the procedure with my class. Now, over in my mentorship program, Teaching Trailblazers, I'm often asked about behaviors that challenge teachers. For example, what do you do about kids who just mistreat the supplies and the materials in the classroom? And this is a very common question I get in the beginning of the year, especially from teachers new to preschool or pre-K. And the truth is, if your students are mistreating the books, the supplies, or the materials in the classroom, their behavior is telling you that they don't understand the routines, procedures, or the expectations involved with using or handling these things. Now, if every single book in your classroom is completely destroyed in some way, and you've put every single book away because you are so frustrated by what you perceive to be their blatant disrespect and their inability to even look at books, then I suggest you take a step back and ask yourself the following questions. Question 1. Did I set the expectation for looking at books in my classroom? Question number 2, did I communicate this expectation to my students effectively? Question 3, how often did I communicate these expectations to my students? Question 4, did I use any visual supports at all to help establish this procedure? And finally, question 5, did I practice the procedure with my students on multiple occasions? But you and I both know that setting expectations and practicing routines and procedures is much easier said than done. I mean, what does setting routines and procedures and expectations even mean, right? You don't know what you don't know. Now, if we're constantly talking at, air quotes, our students to teach them these routines and procedures, won't they just start hearing Charlie Brown's teacher after a while? Like, want, 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 want? And what about our English language learners or our neurodivergent students. How can we help them be successful with the routines and procedures? You see, when it comes to teaching young children ages 3 to 5 the routines and procedures in a classroom, the key ingredient is visual supports or pictures. And not just any pictures or a few pictures, but all the pictures, right? And you need them for almost all the procedures and routines if you really want to make them rock solid. From the very moment that your kids walk into your classroom until the minute they go home, procedures and routines are critical. They're what makes it look like we play all day to other people. So think about it. If you have rock solid routines and procedures in place, then it will look effortless. And to the untrained eye, that can seem like there's a lot of playing going on. Now, don't get me wrong. Play is the work of young children, but there is a lot more that goes into having a successful classroom that runs smoothly. And just having visual supports or pictures to teach procedures and routines in your classroom is not a magic pill. As professional educators, we also need to know and understand how young children's brains develop sequencing skills. Things like, first, I hang up my backpack. Then I hang up my coat. Then I sit on the carpet. And why is it more difficult for some children to learn the routines and procedures than others? And you see, it turns out that learning how to follow directions is a developmental skill that progresses as children mature. And we all know, if you've been a listener of this podcast for any length of time, we all know that each child develops at their own individual pace, right? Did you know that most young children ages 3 to 4 can typically follow 2 to 3 step directions, such as eat your breakfast, then brush your teeth? And then moving on to the next age group, children between the ages of 4 and 5 can typically follow 3-step directions, like put on your shoes, then your coat, and get your backpack, right? So a lot of our frustration with teaching the routines and procedures can be attributed to expecting more of our students than they're developmentally ready for. Okay, so let's break it down to the procedure and routine visual supports that matter most, especially in the beginning of the year. Let's start with arrival. So when your students enter your classroom in the morning, what do they do? If left to their own devices, it could be any number of things. It could look different for every child. Some, they may throw their belongings on the floor because their parents always clean up for them at home. Others, they may cry because they're overwhelmed and they don't know what to do, or they're having separation anxiety. Some might even wear their coats or backpacks all day long if you let them. But we don't do that, do we? Instead, we teach them where to put their belongings, how to hang up their coat, how to hang up their backpack. Where do they go after they put their belongings away, right? It's one tiny little procedure that sets the tone for the entire day. So you've got to make it count, right? This is a time in your day when visual supports can be super helpful for your students. So something as simple as having a visual routine ready to go to show your students exactly what they need to do when they enter your classroom is going to be so helpful in the beginning of the year. So this is my brand new arrival and dismissal visual supports. And you can see there's a frame here, right? This one is a 3-step frame because we just learned about what age group typically can do 3-step directions. Now I do also have a 4 square one, but you can select the pictures. I don't just have 3. There's like 60 different pictures to choose from, maybe more. And this is the routine that we're going to pretend to be following today. That's put my backpack away, hang up my coat, and sit on the carpet. Now, this is a rather large one. This would be one that you might want to put inside each child's cubby, right above the hook in the cubby. I also have them that are so that children can practice left to right. So you could start on one side and go to the other, whatever works best for you. I also have them in a smaller format. And of course, you change the cards out. If your kids don't do things in that order, if they do something else here, like get a name card or sign in, there's pictures for that. But the most important thing to know is that they need visual supports, especially in the beginning of the year, if you want things to flow smoothly. Now, once you've got your kids in the door and they've gone through all these critical steps, now you're ready to start your day on a high note. One procedure down and so many more to go. And what are the other routines and procedures that you'll need to get your classroom running like a well-oiled machine? There's the attendance, right? How will you involve your kids in the attendance process? Signing in or doing a check-in of some sort? And when and how will you teach this process? Then comes the morning routine. What happens after the attendance? Where do they go? What do they do? Do you see where I'm going here? The list of classroom procedures and routines is enormous. I mean, how on earth is one teacher ever going to remember all these teeny tiny little steps that are involved in each of these routines and procedures, especially if they're new to preschool or pre-K? And that's where my free checklist comes in. So you can use the checklist to help you identify all the different routines and procedures you'll need to cover so you can have a successful classroom. So I've listed all of the different procedures and routines for you in this 6-page document. So it walks you through all the things you'll need to think about for each one of these sections. And it also lists the tools you can use or the visual supports that you can use to help teach your students these things. I didn't even talk about the bathroom routine, the classroom rules, your schedule, lining up, walking in the hallway, centers, right? That could be a whole several episode class on that one. Hand washing, oh my goodness, so important. You can never ever assume they already know how to wash their hands. Supplies, how do they treat the crayons, the markers, the glue, all that stuff. That's a whole other course. What's cleanup like? Oh my goodness, probably another one of the most important. How do they look at books and handle the books, setting that expectation up front? What about other things outside the classroom, like eating in the cafeteria if you have one, participating in a fire drill, which can be a complete nightmare at the beginning of the year? What happens if they're on the playground? What are the rules and expectations there? What about our kids who ride the bus, right? And then you've got the nap routine and all kinds of other things that go along with creating a successful classroom. So if you're watching along, you can find a link to this free checklist in the video description box directly below this video. You may have to click on the word more to expand the box. And if you're listening along, just go to pre-kpages.com/62, the number of this episode, and you can find the download there. That's all for now. I'm Vanessa Levin. Onward and upward. If you think these videos are valuable, you have got to come check out the Teaching Trailblazers program. Teaching Trailblazers is the place for teachers like you to get the professional development resources and support you need to thrive. It's where you can learn relevant, life-changing best practices with professional development created specifically around the challenges early childhood teachers face. It's where you can get access to a complete research-based pre-K curriculum that you can use either to supplement your existing curriculum or use on its own to get 100% of your students kindergarten ready by the end of the year. And it's where you can hang out and connect over all things early childhood with other teachers just like you and me. It's my favorite place on earth, and it will change your teacher life, I guarantee it. Come join us at teachingtrailblazers.com to get more information and apply today. That's teachingtrailblazers.com. I can't wait to see you there.